on, everybody, and welcome to this leadership episode of 30 Minutes to President's Club. My name is Armand Farok, and I'm here with my co host, Nick Sigelski. And today, folks, we have one of the greatest episodes we've ever recorded on professional development and generally just making sure that you are taking care of the people on your team the right way. It is with the one and only VP of Global Sales over at PandaDoc. Her name is Steph Jenkins, and frankly, I personally learned a lot on this one. Nick, why should people listen?
Yeah, Armand, we've done almost 300 episodes of this show, and we typically don't talk about stuff like culture and developing your people and the relationships that you build on the team because a lot of folks are very, very fluffy with that content. That was not the case here. We got extremely practical on everything as it relates to how you should be having one on ones with all of the different folks on your team from a cadence perspective, from an agenda perspective. We got into how you should be coaching your first time directors. We got into some really intentional things Steph does to build the culture of her team. And this was a really, really great one if you are leading a team at a director, VP level.
Steph, welcome to the show. We start every leadership show with your top three actionable leadership takeaways. Let's get your three.
The first actionable takeaway is the secret of the squirrel, and it is mission driven work. It's your job as a sales leader to inspire an unshakable belief in the product amongst your sales reps. Instead of telling win stories in team meetings and all hands, start telling customer stories. Often, sales leaders, we get stuck into this trap of saying, "Oh, Sally, how'd you close that $200,000 deal?" And Sally goes, "Oh, like I prospected and I talked to the CMO and they passed me off to the head of marketing and we had a couple conversations, the deal progressed, and then we spent a month in legal closing and that was it. It was amazing." Instead of telling that win story like that, start telling the story about the customer. What did they do? How did they accomplish what they're doing? How are they trying to grow the business? We were talking about this amazing customer that we brought on board. They do the coolest thing, which is they put in the breathalyzers in cars for folks who have had DUIs. What we do is we help streamline their workflow process so that they can get these breathalyzers out to individuals faster and easier and with less of a headache. Talking about what they do and then how we help speed up their process. And by focusing on those aspects of the customer story, it then equips all of our reps with a fantastic little story and a real heart tied to that mission.
What's number two?
Number two is the forced open door policy. And what this is if you are a leader in the organization and you are running not just teams, but teams of teams or teams of teams of teams, you need to have a one-on-one on the calendar on repeat with every single person in your organization. Right now, mine are once a quarter with everyone in my org. It's 25 minutes. I ask the exact same questions every single time. How are you doing personally and professionally? What's working? What's not working? What can I do to help? During those periods, you can really identify trends, what's going on. So you may hear the same thing from 3 or 4 or 5 people. Even if there isn't data behind it, there's like a feeling or a sentiment behind it. There's something that's driving it. And it can help you fix problems really easily. And it can help you find the really good ideas because some of the reps have really good ideas and you want to be able to implement those. And when you implement them, you want to say, "Hey, Helen, that was your idea that we talked about in our one-on-one. 2 months later, we've made that happen. That's why we made that change." And it helps inspire that belief amongst everyone.
Alrighty. So we've forced the open door. We know the secret of the squirrel. What's number three?
It is a sneaky backdoor way to get almost anything you want from your product team. We have a pretty big sales team here and a very big product team. And our sales reps have learned a very good trick. And that is not for me to go ask product, can we do something? If you have a map of what product manager, what product team does what in your organization, you need to absolutely leverage that. Have a bookmark, have your sales reps bookmark it. If you need to request XYZ feature, upgrade ABC, they know exactly who in product to go talk to about it. And then have your sales rep go make the ask to the product manager with the deal. So the product manager might not say yes right away, but they will likely agree to get on the call with the customer. And then they will have a really hard time saying no to the customer, especially if it's a small or medium-sized request that they know that the technical team can do in a short period of time. So inspire those grassroots relationships with your sales reps. making relationships with the specific product managers, make sure they know who to go to ask for what, and I guarantee you'll start getting a lot more from product that you want.
How many
There,
total people are you meeting with in any given quarter? Because it sounds like you're meeting with folks once a
yeah,
quarter for 25 minutes. How are you actually fitting that into your schedule? Because I assume you have more on your
right.
to-do list than meet with team and figure out what's working personally, professionally, etc.
Right now, for me, once a quarter, I meet with about 60 to 65 people. It's not an overwhelming number. What I do is 25 minutes. I usually do 3 a day for about a month. So I kind of space it out. And then it's 1 month of a lot of listening and a very heavy amount of listening. And then you're aggregating the themes and presenting them back to the team and fixing those themes internally. I've done this with orgs up to 200 people, but it is challenging in those scenarios because you really do have to be very diligent about spacing them out and understanding the right amount of time. I've seen some really successful leaders do these back to back for the full week, 15-minute sessions for a week long block. In the 200 instance, it was like 20 minutes every 6 months. But even that is enough to start to build a real human connection so that when you see those individuals in other meetings, a little bit about their personality, it's really like a little bit of a jigsaw with what your
Mhm,
schedule is going to be. But the biggest tip is put it on the meeting and make it a reoccurring meeting.
mhm.
You're not having to reschedule anything. Your EA is not having to reschedule anything. It happens automatically. If you need to move it, you can, but it's on the calendar.
If I'm a rep, I go into this meeting with Steph. Steph is
Yeah.
our global sales leader. I don't want to come off as a complainer, and
No, I
I'm going
love
to
that.
be really polite and filter my actual opinions and all that stuff. How
Sure.
do you make sure that you're really getting the truth of what's not working from your reps?
So different people are totally different. And some reps are a little more vocal in their concerns. And to that, continue to allow them. All ideas are ideas, their thoughts, their feelings, they're all valid. So some people do come in like fiery with a bunch of ideas, and that's totally fine. Create an open space where those can be shared. Some people do not want to complain. You're right. I would say about a third of the people really try to put on a good face and not complain. And you have to dig in the same way, Armand and Nick, that you're digging right now. You're like, okay, well, that's good, but what's one thing that we could do better right now? And help me understand, how does that impact your day to day? Sometimes I'll ask different variations of the question of what's not working. Tell me, if you had a magic wand, what would
Mhm.
you change? If you were in my shoes, what would you fix in the next quarter? Where should I spend my time fixing problems? If you were in our CEO's shoes, what would you say? What would you fix next in the organization? And usually, if you can start asking different variations of the question, they start coming out slowly with some ideas, and then you can start digging in to get the feedback.
I remember I was asking for this feedback from my PAVE team. And at the beginning, I would just ask, hey, how are things going? And
Mhm.
they'd
Yeah.
always tell me all the good stuff. And eventually I realized, no, they're just creating this halo effect around everything that I'm doing because they don't want to share the bad news. And then I started to reframe my questions in a way where you could only deliver
Mhm.
bad news in the
Yeah.
question. So an example was, where in your sales cycle have you felt like we didn't send you in with the right preparation? Was it discovery? Was it negotiation?
Mhm.
Was it your cold email? Was it your prospecting? Unless you're literally going to say that we were prepared in every single part of our sales cycle, I'm going to find a gap in my training. Another good one is, what was a time where I said something in an all hands and it rubbed you the wrong way? I don't know
Yeah.
when I'm coming off the wrong way or being insensitive, or if I'm talking about the fact that we missed a number and I'm overly down on the team or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to do, is you need to explicitly seek out the dissent and create an environment where you want people to expose you to the trouble that's going on the ground. And so you don't just ask for
Mhm.
open feedback because they'll give you the positives.
I would say that's the case for about a third of the people, where it's like very hard and you have to pull it out. But there's another third of the people who are just sales reps who love to vocalize the negative
Mhm.
and who also have a hard time transitioning to a positive moment too.
Steph, one thing that struck me that you put in the prep doc for this was you said you set an agenda for all of
Yeah.
these one-on-ones. And I'm wondering if you could
Yeah.
voice over what that agenda actually sounds like, because it sounds to me like that's
Right.
how you're making sure that the conversation goes in a direction that actually serves you in
Yes.
gathering this feedback from the field.
So every time it's the same four questions. It is, how are you doing personally and professionally? And I try
Mhm.
to understand a little bit about what's going on in their personal life so that you can break down and create some elements of trust so that the person can tell you what's going on. What's working is the second
Mhm.
thing. what's
Mhm.
not working or different variations thereof. And some people come really prepared. They've created a doc and filled it out in advance. I'm always impressed when that happens, when they've
Yeah.
come with their clear talking points. Some people don't even look at the agenda in advance and just wing it. We see where the conversation goes. We try to steer it down the path where I'm getting actionable advice. And sometimes you rat hole on a topic and workshop it a little bit. For example, if we're right in the middle of comp plan planning, when these one-on-ones come up, I'll sneakily start testing the waters on changes to the comp plan. If we did this, would you see that as like a positive thing? Would you see that as a negative thing? Help me understand if we balanced it out with this. And you can also use this space to test certain ideas, especially if those topics are coming up where you're actively making decisions in those categories.
Are there certain topics that you will intentionally say, hey, we're not going to cover this in this meeting, or that needs to be done with your manager, or hey, this isn't the right space for this?
I usually lead with this is the agenda, but we can take this wherever you want. And some
Mhm.
people do take it exactly where they want to go. And that's okay too. I think it's important to be the listening and sounding ground. And sometimes the actions of those meetings might turn out a lot different, right? If someone's bringing up a deeply personal thing, or you might want to think about, okay, well, maybe we need to loop in HR. Can I talk to your manager about this? Are we okay with that? Sometimes they might bring up something that's like very operational and you rat hole on that. And then your action item from that is like you talk to your operations team about it and see if this is this a quick thing that we can fix, because a lot of times like, quick easy fixes come out and you can just check them off the box by actioning on them. And then sometimes they're much harder conversations where someone wants to change their entire compensation, but those are the things that you'll hear consistent themes of. So you'll understand by doing this, it's not just a one-off request, or this person is not on an island. If it's consistent, you hear it from 4 or 5 people, and then you start drawing a trend. And then you start looking at the data. Does the data support it? And then you can start building a business case for actually making a change in the organization.
How do you get input from the reps on how things are going with their manager and figure out
Yeah.
if your frontline leadership staff is doing an effective job? Because a lot of reps are
Yeah.
really afraid of retaliation.
I will run them exactly how it's written in Radical Candor to the T.
Mm.
And to be fair, I have not done this at PandaDoc yet. We have not been ready for it, but we will be likely ready for this in the next 6 months. We have implemented skip levels. It hasn't been in this format. But the most successful skip levels and where you really identify if this frontline manager is doing a good job is running it. And you share a document with the reps in advance and say, this is what we're going to talk about. This is to benefit the manager. Let's say you're the manager, right? And you've got a team. So you meet with the team one-on-one without you in a room, and you sharing the document you have on the screen. Everyone can see exactly what you are typing. And you say, this is for the benefit of Armand. We're trying to coach him to get him better. Everyone's doing this. We all want to improve our skill set. So we're going to talk a little bit about what is Armand doing really well that you want him to keep doing.
Mhm.
And then we are also going to talk about what do you want him to stop doing or to start doing? What can he do to continue to improve and be a better manager? And it's a little awkward at first. It usually takes about an hour of sitting down with reps in a room, or if you're doing this with managers for a director, it takes a while. And it's patiently listening, taking notes, teasing out ideas, asking for clarification when something comes up, asking for a time. And everything is completely anonymous. You have to reassure them that they can see what you're typing. You're not writing anyone's names next to it. You're not going to say, Nick said this about you. Unless sometimes reps want to self-identify.
Yeah.
So you can do a self-identification. It's totally fine. And then Armand, when it's time for me to deliver this feedback to you, I'll share the document right after the call is over with you. So you could go in there and read it. And then we'll spend an hour in an upcoming one-on-one talking about these are some of the themes I heard. This is what we could do to get better. These are like specific examples of that. What do you think about implementing some of this? And I guarantee you, your frontline managers, your second line managers will improve so quickly when you start this process, because they know that this is in the spirit of helping them grow and learn, and they'll get better instantly at it. And it's really healthy feedback for the team to be able to say, give advice to a manager in that safe setting. You have to have built trust with the team that you're doing the skip level with too, or else they're going to think of you as a scary person and not want to say anything.
Could you give an example of something that you uncovered, as comfortable as you are sharing, but what's an example of something
Sure.
that you uncovered in these sessions that was helpful or enlightening to a manager that their team might not have told them directly?
Oh, I'll give you an example when I had this done on me. And it's when I was first in a director role, my first time kind of managing managers who are managing reps. And I received some of the best piece of advice. My managers got in a room with my VP and said at the time, "Hey, Steph does all these things, fantastic, yay, yay." But she's like way too in the weeds and she's still stuck in the deals and she's still like trying to help drive them. And we need her to peel out, go fix the other problems, which is such a common first time director problem. It's so common. And I was really lucky to receive that advice as a result of one of these skip levels early and then correct my behavior and constantly check in. Am I too deep in? Am I too far out? How is the balance for this group? Pulling out then allowed me to go fix these other business problems, which actually drives your revenue in a really positive direction when you have someone doing that.
This is a slight aside, but I think that's such
Mm-hmm.
an important point around what it takes to go from frontline manager to second line or third line leader.
Yes.
If you think of your work as there's rhythmic recurring work, deal
Yeah.
reviews, or as a rep, almost 100% of your work is rhythmic work. It's a similar
Yes.
job on different types of deals, right? Prospect,
Totally.
you fill your funnel, you do discovery, you drive deals forward, you lather, rinse, repeat. As a manager, your job goes like 80% rhythmic, deal reviews, pipeline reviews, 20% project-based work, right? Doing little things to improve your team. As you go from manager to director, that gets closer and closer to a 50-50 mix. That's
Yeah.
when you go from working in the business, deal reviews, pipeline reviews, jumping on calls, all that stuff, to 50% of your stuff is you're still on the key deals, you're still doing the segment
Yeah.
level forecast, but 50% of your stuff is on the business. How do I make sure that I'm moving the entire mid-market segment in the
Right.
right way? How do we redesign our territories for these
Yes.
different geos, which is a one-time project that's going to pay
Yeah.
us for 2 or 3 quarters? And that's where a lot of managers struggle is they think I'm just going to
Totally.
be super pipeline reviewer. And
Hmm.
that is not what it means to be a
Uh-uh.
director or VP
No.
of sales. And VP, as is literally 80%
You're like 100%
project based.
strategy. Yeah. And like, where do we need to go in 5 years? And then what do we need to do now to get there? And so much of the first time second line managers really struggle with that transition on pulling out of the deal reviews. And I certainly did too in the beginning. So I was really fortunate to receive this advice early on. And I believe then that allowed me and it empowered me to put much more of my time and energy where I did think the long term health of the business needed to go, which then fueled the business's success and helped fuel my success too. So that was really good advice.
I actually have a question for both of you because I feel like there is so much talk out there about reps becoming a first time manager, going from rep to manager. And I feel like there is very, very little advice about manager going to director for the first time. And so we just talked about one of these things. Armand, I like your model thinking about, okay, the percentage of rhythmic versus project. You've got someone who's a new director for the very first time. They went from manager to director, and you're only allowed to give them 3 pieces of advice, and they have to be actionable takeaways. What would they be? We'll start with you, Steph.
The first thing would be pull out of the weeds. The second would be to stop being friends. Sorry, I hate to say that, but you have to adopt a full business perspective at this point where the business has to come first. Because if the business comes first, it will ensure the future health and happiness of the people in your team for the long term, not for
Yeah.
the short term. It will make sure that they will have jobs in several years. You will make sure that there won't be any rifts that might hurt or negatively impact their personal lives. The best way that you can do that is not to give them that little thing that they want that will make them happy now, but to make sure that the business is healthy for the long term. Part of that is you make the hard decisions. And part of that is understanding that every decision that you make is not going to make them happy.
My wife just took on a director role and she's experiencing that right now where she's had to go from being friends with the people on the team to pushing and giving some harder feedback, and it makes her really deeply uncomfortable. But I'm literally going to send that clip that you just talked through to her. You owe me a third one though. You only gave me 2, Steph.
The last thing is being really deliberate with the culture that you're building in the organization and knowing that that is not HR's job. That's not your boss's job. That's not your VP's job. That's your job to build the culture that you want to build. And you need to be specific about it. You need to be intentional about it. It should come from the people, and facilitating the right places for that culture to build are really important. Also, for the long term success and future of the business, it helps with retention, it helps with identification, it helps with showing people the behavior that you want.
Armand, how about you?
The first one is as you go from manager to director, you have a job that still needs to be done and filled at the frontline level. So the pipeline reviews are still happening, the deal reviews are still happening, the call coverage is still happening. The difference is your reps are still going to be coming to you for that stuff unless you've made it clear where you've decided to delegate or continue to dive deep. So step number one is as you step back, I would really recommend you figure out what are your inspection points going to be as a director. I started a segment level forecast meeting and I was like, I'm not going to be involved in the frontline manager forecast. Each manager is going to manage their own forecast. I'm going to do the roll up meeting and go and inspect managers' forecasts. And I'm going to make sure that I ask questions about any deal that's committed or in best case over 50K. That keeps me in the rhythmic work enough where I'm not completely going backseat, but I can figure out how to inspect across 30 reps instead of across 8 reps, for example. So that's number one.
Yeah.
So once you've made sure that the frontline manager job is still being done the right way, all of those key responsibilities, the weekly tape reviews, all that stuff. Step number 2 is this is going to be the highest level one that I give. You need to develop a brand strategy and vision for your segment. My first director role was running SMB and sales development representatives at Carta. Before I was a senior manager of SDR, when I first took over that team, I was very clearly, this is the type of sales development organization we need to be. Right now, we're mass blasting emails. We're going to be a multi-channel SDR organization that's really good at picking up the phone, and we're going to be damn good at selling in a way that doesn't feel like selling when we're prospecting. That included a lot of things on making more conversational talk tracks, on doing the $200 challenge in front of the entire sales org, things like that. Number 2 is like when people think of what does Armand's SDR org look like or what does Armand's SMB org look like, you need to put a face to that. And that's not just for the powers that be around the organization. That's for people in your team so that they understand that this thing is going in a certain direction.
Yeah.
And then step 3, every single quarter, you want to pick 2 or 3 projects that move the entire business forward. Again, this is non-rhythmic work. The way that I think about the different domains of leadership is in order of a rep's life cycle. You hire, you train, you coach, and then you enable them with systems. And so in any one of those 4 areas, I can come up with a different project of something that we might work on. I might say, okay, Q2, we're going to work on revamping our entire training program because we're dropping a lot of deals in this stage. And so we're going to focus on nothing but training on better sales process and coaching people on those weekly deal reviews better. And that might be one of my 2 focuses for the quarter. And then the other might be, okay, this is going to be the quarter where it's a return to prospecting and we're going to do nothing, but every Monday morning meeting, we're going to make sure that every single SDR posts their 200 dials on the leaderboard. We're not going to do anything but that. And so that's how I think the 3 things work together. And that's what starts to get you thinking on the business instead of in the business. So Stephanie, now that you're leading an entire sales organization, we talked about first, second, and now it's third line sales leader.
Yeah.
Could you give an example of the types of projects or initiatives that you're thinking about as you lead an entire sales organization going into Q4?
I love using an OKR framework. I'm addicted to it to help plan for the work for the quarter to come and then to constantly check in on the progress of those initiatives to make sure that things are moving in the right direction. The reason why I also really love an OKR framework is you can make it a very cross-functional group so that everyone is very aligned on working towards these bigger boulders. Your objectives may change every quarter. They may not change every quarter, and that's okay too. The key results or how you are accomplishing those objectives may change underneath that. So for us, this is very common. We've had outbound prospecting as a big focus, a big boulder of ours for the last 3 quarters in a row. And the first quarter was all about laying the right foundations and making sure those initiatives underneath that were helping us set us up for success in the future. Projects that I need our operations team to complete, or I need our enablement team to help me with, or I need our product team to get done, or I need our marketing team to help with too. All of those can fall under the same project management guidelines so that you get everyone rowing in this direction on how we are going to grow outbound prospecting. Because I can scream at reps to do outbound prospecting, but we know that just saying it does not actually change the behavior, and they will need the tools in their toolkit to be able to accomplish the goals that we set forth for them. The other really big project that we've had for a couple of quarters now is helping speed up our sales reps. to
Mm.
eliminate workflow inefficiencies, which is also part of our PandaDoc mission. But how do we turn that mirror and look at ourselves internally and say, how do we speed it up? It's not just the sales reps learning how to get something from proposal to close faster and the verbal commitments. It's also a lot of the operational commitments. How fast are we moving through systems, like our speed to lead? How do we improve that? So there's a lot of cross-functional work that needs to go towards the larger initiatives. Using a framework to help drive everyone in the right direction can be really helpful to accomplish those bigger goals.
Stephanie, amazing show. We have to move to the final question. What is one bad habit that every sales leader should break so that all sales teams get a little bit better out there?
I don't think that yelling at people helps you in the long term. I've worked in the sales cultures that are like the grind, where someone's barking at you at the top. And
Mhm.
I think it is fantastic for short term motivation. Like, how do you build pipeline today? How do you close revenue today? But at the end of the day, you are training people to always be yelled at to get what they want.
Yeah.
And instead, as a sales leader, if you can start shifting your mind on how to inspire intrinsic motivation in people so that they feel motivated to accomplish their why and motivated to sell the product, that deep set belief that they're doing the right thing, it helps so much in the long term build this fantastic culture of hitting and exceeding your metrics for the right reasons. I really think that if there's a sales leader listening to this podcast and you think you've gotten a long way by yelling at your teams or turning up the heat and screaming in an office, it's time to stop doing that. And it's time to start motivating people from the inside.
We don't always get to talk about culture on the podcast, but you found a way to make it extremely tactical. So, folks, I would listen back to this a couple times, especially if you want to be a second or third line sales leader, to make sure that you're staying close to the people and you understand what's actually going on in your sales org. So, everyone, hang on for a 60-second recap email coming up soon. Alrighty, Nick, time for a 2x2 recap from this episode with Steph Jenkins. What do you have for your 2?
So my first one was, there are going to be folks when you meet with them that you really have to dig to figure out what's not working. And what Steph recommended is ask that question of what's not working multiple times in a variety of different ways. Some examples were, if you had a magic wand and you could wave it and change anything, what would it be? If you were in my shoes, what would you be doing differently? If you were in our CEO's shoes, what would you be doing differently? What's one thing that we could change? Armand, you also gave some examples of where in the sales cycle do you feel like we've let you down or haven't enabled you with what you need? Or, hey, is there a time that I've said something in an all hands where something rubbed you the wrong way? So you have all these different ways you can ask what's not working well. You need to get the not good out in the air on these one-on-ones. Number 2 is the radical candor exercise that Steph took us through. You are going to get in a room with all of the reps that report up to a manager. It's just the reps, not the manager in there. And what you're going to do is you pull up a Google Doc, and on that document, you're going to facilitate a discussion and pull out 3 big things from the team. What are things that the manager should keep doing? What's working really well? What should they stop doing? And what should they start doing? And you're going to have an hour-long discussion with the group and document all of these things. Then, immediately after the meeting, you'll have a meeting with the manager and you'll share that feedback with them. This is one of the best ways that Steph has said she's developed professionally. And this is a really, really great way to understand what's going on with teams and help empower and build your managers.
Number 3, I've seen so many VPs of sales who seem like they're in an ivory tower because they literally never meet with any of the reps anymore. Steph maintains skip levels all the way through an organization of 200 people. That might mean that you need to do some one-on-ones quarterly. That might mean that you need to do some group 3-on-1s or 4-on-1s or smaller pod meetings, but you got to find a way to stay close to the people and get the actual read on what's happening on the sales floor. And then lastly, number 4, if you want to make it to the director level and certainly at the VP level, you need to manage more than just your rhythmic day-to-day or week-to-week work. Being a director of sales, a director of mid-market sales, a director of enterprise sales, or a segment leader overall is not the same thing as doing daily deal reviews, pipeline reviews, jumping on sales calls and one-on-ones. You need to pick 2 or 3 priorities every single quarter that move the entire business. The example that Steph gave is if you're really focused on prospecting, The way a manager might focus on that problem is they might look at a rep's activity dashboard.
Mhm.
The way a director might approach that problem is they're going to make sure that their hiring profiles are for people that are prospecting. They're going to make sure that every single week the team is being coached on prospecting. And then they're going to make sure that the systems work and there are proper dashboards across the entire sales organization so that you can constantly keep tabs on how much pipeline the team is building. And so that takes a quarter to move an entire sales organization in a different direction. That's how a director or VP thinks. Alrighty, Nick, how could people help us out here?
To the point of picking 1 to 2 initiatives per quarter, one of the initiatives that Steph talked about was helping the team close deals faster and accelerate the sales cycle. Well, shocker, Armand, we partnered with Pandadoc and we put together a 30 MPC guide on 5 ways to accelerate the vendor review stage of a sales process so you can start to close your deals faster. It's actually a really, really helpful guide that can help you control the end of a sales process and get your deal done on your timeline. There's a link in the show notes to go get it. It's free. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on the show.